Viewer discretion advised.
Good morning, Z-Horde. Welcome. Wacky Wednesday, Weird Wednesday here on the Morning Horde Rush. I'm your host, Steve Stockton. Glad y'all could join us today. Let's see who all we have in the chat. Queenie Todd, good to see you with us, Queenie. Demented Centaur, Banshiba, Mia Mina, two of our fabulous mods there. Creepy Clown Girl, another fabulous one. We've got the best mods in the business here, I'm telling you. See who else? Nightbot, of course. I don't know if Miscast Entertainment will be here tonight or not, but him and Nightbot have been having a little fight lately. So let's see. Sean G, Chasing the Truth. How are you doing, brother? Glad to see you here. Just a little aside here. I'm going to be on Sean's show on the Dark Waters Network Saturday night. I'm going to be his guest. So I'm looking forward to that. Don Sharp, how are you doing? Glad to have you with us. Another East Tennessee person, I believe, there. Let's see who else. Scrolling back through the chat here. I believe I've covered everybody up to this point. If I missed you, give me a shout out in the chat there. Don't want to miss anybody. Y'all could be here with us today. Said it's hump day. We're halfway to the weekend. Oh, there's Dingleberry. Dingleberry just popped in. Who's Steve Stockton? I'm 13 past midnight, Dingleberry. Some people know me as one, some people know me as the other. Hopefully everybody will eventually know me as both, but there you go. Little Scooby-Doo mystery for you there. Yeah, 13 past midnight was the name that I came up with for my YouTube channel. I like the number 13 and just came up with that and ran with it instead of using my real name for everything. But then everybody knows me as Steve anyway. So, but glad you could join us, Dingleberry. So how's everybody doing today? Anything going on? Just to let you know, 43 days until Halloween. So that's not long. That'll be here before you know it. And actually here at my house, it's Halloween year round. I have a lot of decorations that I keep up all the time. And then I celebrate for sure the whole month. So it's a lot less than 43 days for me. It's more like 12 days until Halloween starts. Okay. Well, this morning, got a special guest coming up for y'all. Heather Moser is my guest today. She's a classicist who loves reading, writing, and researching a variety of topics, including ancient history, folklore, and the supernatural. She's published poetry, short stories, and academic papers, as well as presented at conferences, both in the United States and abroad. You can hear her on doing her first narration ever on my channel, doing a piece that she wrote about witches and silver bullets. If you haven't listened to it, go check it out after the stream. It's awesome. I'll have a link in the chat later. So let me go ahead and bring her on. How about a big Z-Horde welcome for Heather Moser? Come on in, Heather.
Hello.
Good
nice
morning.
To be here.
Yeah, great to have you. Thank you for coming on, being my guest today.
Thanks for asking me.
Oh, absolutely. For those of you who aren't familiar with Shannon LeGros, that's how I met Heather Moser. Shannon has a show called Into the Fray Radio, and I've been Shannon's guest countless times. At one point, I held the distinction of being the most episodes being a guest on it. That may have changed recently, but I noticed one day that had some blog posts on their intothefray.com site, and really wonderful piece about witches and silver bullets. And I'd never heard that. I'd always heard about the werewolves and silver bullets. So I read that and I thought, this is amazing. So I got a hold of the author and wanted to get permission to narrate it for my channel. And she's like, well, I'll narrate it for you. And I thought, this is great. And it turns out that's her first ever narration, and she's got the perfect voice for it, I think. So definitely check that out. So Heather, you're very varied there, very well spoken and well educated, well studied. What got you into the paranormal and the supernatural side of things?
Wow. Well, I think that all started when I was just a little girl. Unsolved Mysteries was something that we watched weekly. I guess it was a weekly show at the time. And I even had the phone number memorized at the end when you had any tips or anything to call in with Robert Stack, you know. And I would repeat the numbers right along with him. And I really enjoyed watching it. Not that it didn't freak me out at times. I think the first time that I was awake all night out of terror was because they premiered the episode of The Yeti, and they showed, I think it was a hand. And I just had this vision that all night long I stared at my bedroom door handle thinking that I was going to see that hand grab my door. And I think I was in kindergarten at the time or so. I don't know. But I was awake, terrified from that point. And my dad also showed me scary movies, even though my mother protested. And she was kind of right to do so. I mean, there were nights where I would lay in bed and yell until somebody came in because I didn't want to be alone in the dark.
Oh gosh. That was a great show for me. A lot of memories for me. And like you, that number is forever etched into my brain. Do you still know it?
I do not remember it now. No, but I do remember saying it all the time.
It's 1-800-876-5353, as Robert Stack would say.
There you go.
One of those things, and certain things like that just stick in your head. And that's probably taking up room for something important that could be there, but I'll always remember that number.
Yeah, I was excited when I saw that they had some episodes. I think it was on Amazon Prime that you can watch now. And watching it as an adult, it does not make it less creepy. I've noticed.
Absolutely. Maybe even more so.
Yeah.
Because you realize you've kind of lost that childhood innocence to a degree to where you realize there's some bad people out there doing some really bad things. And
absolutely.
I wonder, because as a teenager, I went to the UK and backpacked and hitchhiked for a year. I took a gap year between high school and college, and it makes you wonder, the rides I got, what if the next person had been an axe murderer or something?
Yeah.
And,
I don't know. I was in Norway last summer and I felt pretty safe in Norway. Other places in Europe I've been to, maybe not so much, but in general, sometimes I feel safer over there than I do here.
Oh, absolutely. I would take anywhere that I've ever been in the UK over, say, certain areas of Chicago or Baltimore.
Yeah.
Even Los Angeles, Detroit. There's just a lot of places that it's not that safe anymore. And then no disrespect to anybody that lives in or is from any of those places, but as an outsider and not knowing where to go and where not to go, it can be frightening.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned your father exposing things to you as a child. I did the same thing with my daughter. We talked a little bit about that earlier. I find it amazing that you like to include your kids on these outings and things. There was a post you had recently about the Bell Witch Cave, and you talked about taking your kids there. I took my daughter there when she was 10 years old. She loved it. We took a lot of pictures. She went back to school, printed them out, and she had a poster and took that for show and tell. And the other kids were just stunned, like, weren't you scared? You're like, no, it's the Bell Witch.
It's just the Bell Witch.
Yeah, it's just the Bell Witch. Nothing to be afraid of. And I've talked about my daughter being afraid of Pee Wee Herman, but sleeping with a talking Freddy Krueger doll. So there you go. And then I noticed on your Facebook page that there's some pictures of your kids with haunted dolls, or the one daughter there has her own personal child-sized skeleton that she seems to think highly of. That's just amazing.
Yeah, that's Stacy. That skeleton's name is Stacy. And all three of my kids have their own skeletons now. You got them at the dollar store. They were only like $10. So
I like the alliteration there too. Stacy the skeleton.
yes. Well, she names most of her stuff. The next blog post that'll be coming out for Shannon with Into the Fray talks about haunted dolls, and the doll that we got from the Bell Witch Cave, she also named Sasha. So she tends to name her dolls, but yeah, I try to take them. It actually wasn't until last year that they got to go on their first out-of-state trip, and that was to the Mothman Festival. So I thought that was fitting. And then this year they were able to go to the Bell Witch Cave, and on the way back home we stopped by the Popelick train trestle to see where the Popelick monster may be, which actually was just a sobering moment for them, I think, because there were balloons and pictures of the girl who most recently passed away from falling off the train trestle. So
yeah,
it was still a learning moment though, because you get the chance to talk to them about, it's fun to talk about these things and be interested, but you've got to be really careful and responsible when you go to certain places.
Absolutely.
So, and then we'll be going back to Mothman Festival this weekend.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, that's coming up. I've been years ago, but it was a lot of fun. Friend of mine, Jeff Wamsley, has the Mothman Museum there. It's a hoot. The whole town just goes nuts for Mothman. And you're telling me something interesting. After your daughter learned about Mothman, anytime she got a scratch or anything there, she attributed it to Mothman. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was always Mothman that did it after that. That's my youngest. It seems that's the way it works after that. She learns about a new monster, then that's the reason that anything happens.
And you said it didn't necessarily scare her. She was like, "Oh, it's just Mothman." That's
yeah.
what he
She
does.
wasn't.
He comes in and scratches me.
Yeah, she wasn't scared of him. Now Sasha, on the other hand, the doll, it's a love-hate relationship with Sasha. And anytime she's had a nightmare now, she tells me that it's because Sasha was upset with her for playing with another doll instead of her.
Oh, no, that's kind of creepy. I like that.
Yeah, I know. I just tell her, I'm like, listen, Sasha likes you because you chose her and you brought her home. So let's not get scared. But she swears that she gets upset with her if she plays with other dolls.
Oh, okay. Love that imagination, just the world of childhood there. But I think that's a great way to go, and just expose them to as much stuff like that. And then it fosters an interest. My own interest in the paranormal came about because of hearing stories and things like that when I was growing up. And I was pretty much an only child. My one brother was 17 years older than I was, so I was raised as an only, and just had to kind of make my own fun. So
yeah, that's a lot like me. My brother's 15 years older than I am, and my sister is about 17 years older than I am. So I was raised pretty much as an only child. My sister was already out of the house by the time I came around. My brother was there for a little while, but the memories I have of that are just him being a big brother, like teasing me and such.
Yeah, sounds very familiar. Since the time I was cognizant, my brother was out on his own, married, had his own family. I became an uncle when I was 4. And so my nephew was always more like a brother to me, and my brother seemed more like an uncle or something, just because of that disconnect there. And we weren't really closer until much later in life, but interesting dynamic there. Yeah, I was a late in life, unplanned baby. My dad used to love kidding me, tell me that I was supposed to be a 1963 Corvette. That once my brother was moving out, my parents were going to buy a new Corvette convertible and hit the road like on Route 66 with Todd and Buzz. And surprise.
Yeah. And I think partially because I was raised basically as an only child, I got some of these stories. I don't know if Mom ever shared the Ouija board story that's in the last blog post from Into the Fray. I don't know if she shared those with my brother and sister when they were younger or not. I've never really asked them. They're aware of it now. But I do remember that being one of the first stories that I'd heard about this Elizabeth that came on the board when she was younger.
And that's an excellent blog post there. By the way, there'll be a link in the chat to that if you need to go read it. If you have any interest at all in Ouija, or even if you don't like Ouija, it's still a great story. Take a moment here and see who else come in the can. Awkward Alien Kayla or Kaylala. And don't think there's anybody else that's snuck in behind us. Oh, RB is here. Thank you for joining us today, RB. So,
Yay!
Heather,
that's my friend.
Okay, cool. Yeah, Heather is the best. Yeah, I think we're caught up on the chat there. Good deal. Oh, Journey Through the Gate, Paranormal Portal Podcast. That's a mouthful. There's Cisco Murdoch, my co-author and partner in crime there. She said, I'm a 65 Corvette with chrome spoke wheels. Okay, I'll take that. But now, I think it's neat the way that you are an academic and into the classics. You told me that you studied Greek and, was it Latin literature, I think?
Yeah, Latin literature is my master's degree. So Greek and Roman history were my undergrad. Technically classics in Latin, but it's all the same thing.
And yet you also enjoy the Appalachian. Now, I want to clarify this because you're from a different part of the mountain range than I am. Do you say Appalachia, or Appalachian?
I say Appalachia.
That's usually how I say it, but down home it's a little different, and there's sometimes an N in there, Appalachian, and I don't know where they get that. Well, you and I talked about that once before. Probably the same place that the R comes from in wash.
Yes.
If you don't know what I'm talking about, you down south, you wash your clothes or you wash your face before dinner.
Yeah, we do that here too.
But
and the crick out back instead of the creek. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, where I grew up, it was a creek, but I've heard creek all throughout Appalachian. Somebody else and I think maybe that was you and I another time we were talking about how there's a real difference between the northern and the southern parts of the mountain range, whereas the southern part has more of the oral tradition as far as storytelling and stuff that's not as prevalent in the northern Appalachians. So.
Right. Yeah, I just came back from a conference, not this last weekend, but the one before in Wheeling, West Virginia. It was the first writers' conference of Northern Appalachia. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting to hear the different perspectives from people from Northern West Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, a little bit of Maryland, New York area. And even some people in other areas of Ohio and Pennsylvania say Appalachia. Mm-hmm. But no one there did I hear say Appalachia. I never heard that one while we were there.
That's, like I said, that one probably relative to the parts of East Tennessee that I was in at the time, because that was the only place I ever heard it. But there are things like that down there that are just pronounced oddly. And heard a chimney pronounces chimbly with a B in it, or trying to think of some more examples. There's just some weird things like that. There's even a laundromat in Oneida, Tennessee that's called the Wash House, and it has the R in it.
Well, that's on the drive from here over to Pittsburgh. And I don't know if it's in the panhandle of West Virginia or if it's right when you get across the line into Pennsylvania, but they have a big sign for firewood, but it's spray painted FAR, Farwood.
Farwood, oh yeah.
Yeah, right on the side of the road. It's there every time I drive by.
Yeah, we talked about that. That's definitely a southern pronunciation. And we talk about your tars are on far. Because of the wars in your car. You're like, what language are you speaking? You have to need subtitles for some places, particularly in the hardcore Appalachia, the places that I've been into. There was an old gentleman that I was getting some stories from for my books. This was years and years ago. And I asked where his family was from, and he said Harlan. And I thought he meant Harlan, Kentucky.
Right.
So I tried to follow down that, and come to find out he was saying Ireland. But
okay.
But it was Ireland, and I heard Harlan. So it wasn't too far from Harlan, Kentucky, even though it was in Tennessee.
Yeah.
So it's just, yeah, he was first generation American. His family had come over from Ireland, and why, what possessed them, I don't know, but they lived out in the absolute middle of nowhere in Fentress County on the Cumberland Plateau over there. Or if you're from the area, it's the Plateau. You say plateau, they know you're from Knoxville or somewhere and don't know what you're talking about. But yeah, they came over from Ireland and moved out in the absolute middle of the woods. I mean, miles out in the woods.
Yeah.
And they would go out for like groceries once a month. There was a whole clan of them, like 10 kids. And the mom and dad, and they would, my father used to talk about seeing him. He was from that area, and said we'd see him carrying groceries home. You know, they had a little cart that they pulled it in, didn't have any mules or horses or any kind of livestock. Just, you know, every kid grabbed as much as they could carry and off they went.
Sure.
But it's amazing. Some people today, modern people, I don't think would believe that people lived like that at all, and some even up until modern times. I know in the house my dad grew up with, they didn't have indoor plumbing until sometime in the 80s.
Yep.
And
oh yeah,
electricity, they had these big batteries that looked like fish aquariums that powered 2 or 3 lights in the house, and that was the extent of their electricity. I mean, this is literally middle of nowhere. And I think a lot of times that's, and those places tend to be rich in the stories. And I think because there was nothing else to do, you know, it's just like,
right.
Especially in the wintertime, if they farmed and things, they would sit around the wood stove, too cold to farm, and they would tell stories. And also on my dad's side of the family, my grandmother is half Cherokee, and the Native Americans have that oral tradition. They've got a story and a legend for every single thing you can think of, the most, you know, minutia all the way up to major things. And that was always interesting to me. Any plant or animal or event or anything that you could think of, they had a story of how it came to be.
Yeah, and I love looking at different folklores and mythologies and seeing the similarities, which I think kind of just speaks to being human in general, especially when it's civilizations that were not in contact with each other. It's just humans figuring out stories so that things make sense to us.
Yeah, and even in a microcosm of that, my mom's family were from extreme eastern Tennessee, the Cades Cove area, and Ramsey, Cosby, that part of East Tennessee. My dad was from Middle Tennessee, Fentress County, over on the plateau. And yet they had heard some of the same stories from family members growing up. So, you know, it makes you wonder, because there was no instant communication back then. Nobody had phones. There was certainly no internet, maybe a radio if you were lucky.
Right.
But yet a lot of the same stories got passed around. Circumstances would be a little different. You know, maybe the names and the locations changed, but it was the same story. And that always fascinated me, because you could get a dozen different versions of the same story and then just kind of piece it together into one mega story, and then covered everything.
Yeah.
And you spoke about attending conferences on the Appalachian studies. Have you ever gone to any of the paranormal conferences? Do you participate in any of that?
I have not had the chance to participate in any, but actually back in, I feel like it was the end of June, 1st of July, somewhere in there in Moundsville, West Virginia, they had a paranormal convention that I attended. And it was really interesting to hear the different speakers and to meet some people, and also revisit some friends from down there. But the only regret is that I was not aware of the convention in enough time to reserve a spot for the ghost hunt that night. That was already sold out by the time I bought my tickets for the convention. And so I need to rectify that for next year, because I've never been on a ghost hunt, and that needs to change. Now,
as far as the ghost hunt, tell the audience what ghost hunt is there at Moundsville.
So for this particular paranormal convention, they had a ghost hunt after the convention in the evening, and I think it went from like 10 p.m. to 4 a.m., where they let you in the prison, and you just kind of, I'm assuming, sort of free reign. I imagine there might be places that are not completely safe, that are blocked off, but you just go and hang out for the night, see what you can find. If you have equipment of your own, you can bring it in. And I think this last time they had the I'm not familiar with these guys, but the Tennessee Wraith Chasers were supposed to be there for an hour or two. I don't know how long they stayed, but they were supposed to be there to be with them. But yeah, and they do that. I don't know how often they do that during the year because I've not really looked into it. I know they do it at Mansfield here in Ohio, where Shawshank, well, I guess Moundsville is now also Shawshank from the that show that just came out that just completely escaped my mind. That's getting ready to come out again. The Stephen King one on Hulu. Can't remember what it's called now.
When you're talking about me, it's eluding me.
Oh my goodness. I can't believe that I'm not remembering that because I loved it. The first season. The next one that comes out is going to be about misery. Okay, show. Hulu.
New folks joining us in the chat here while you're looking that up here. See
Castle Rock.
Okay, Castle. Yeah,
I don't know why I didn't.
The whole time.
Yep, Castle Rock.
Chat. We've got Spazman 500. How are you doing today, Spaz? Also saw. Scroll down here a little bit. MD Who Entertainment. Hi there. Thank you for joining us, Madam Doctor. Slumber Reads, good to see you here. A lot of neat people coming in today. Maret Madsen, how are you? Looking forward to your interview with Creepy Clown Girl. That's going to be a good one. And let's see. I think I saw another one. I believe that's it, though. If I missed you, give me a shout out in the chat there. So, we got another one just come in. Leonard Barton, welcome. Joyce. Hey, there's Miscast. Better watch out, Miscast. Nightbot's in the chat. He's been looking for you. There's this little thing going on when Miscast comes in. Nightbot likes to smack him around and ban him and silence him and all this, and we don't know why. And Miscast says that it's not just particular to this channel, that he's had problems with Nightbot picking on him in other channels. So keep Nightbot under control here. But yeah, I would love to go on some of those ghost hunts. Those are two of the places I've never been to that you mentioned there.
You have not been to either of those prisons?
No, I haven't been to either of those.
That's a shame. You need to.
I've got to get back east. I've got so many things that I want to see and do back there, and some of them for the second time. I know you mentioned the Bell Witch Cave. I've been there. Want to go back to Adams, Tennessee. Chris Kirby, her and her husband own the old Bell Witch farm there, and just amazing what they've got going on there. She is just such a wonderful host too. Knows the history of not only the farm but the whole area there. She's got a book of photos that will blow your mind. That some that she's taken, some that other people have taken and sent back. She's got some booklets and things that you can purchase on site there that are about the Bell Witch Cave. Just fascinating. Did you have any paranormal experiences while you were at the cave, Heather?
So I think part of the problem with me is that I'm so excited for something to potentially happen that it escapes me while I'm there. But what I ended up doing was taking a ton of pictures while in the cave. And afterwards, if you have like an iPhone, I don't know if other phones do this or not, but you have the live photo option when you take a picture. So it actually takes a half-second video or whatever. And there were some orbs that showed up, but the most disturbing one, which I showed, well, Chris ended up seeing it, but I don't know if I can't remember if I showed it directly to Chris. No, I couldn't have because I didn't see it until a couple days later. But I sent it to the one tour guide, Kara, who's a friend of mine down there. I sent it to her, and it's not an orb, and it's not really mist. It's like a shadow that shoots across the picture, which I didn't see at the time. It was in the second room because there's just the two rooms. It was in the back room, and off in the distance, you see it shoot from the bottom of the picture up to the top. And I think it was one of the first times that they'd actually had an instance of a dark, shadowy orb thing flying across. So, but other than that, nothing happened while I was actually there.
I had kind of a similar experience. I had a digital camera with me, and just taking pictures here, there, and everywhere. And then when we finished the tour, we were sitting outside. She had a little, it was a gazebo or a picnic table or something up there we were sitting at. And I was reviewing my pictures, And in one picture, there's something, it's black, it's oblong. It was at an angle. It looked like maybe a fallen timber or something.
Uh-huh.
And she looked at it and she's like, what is that? And I'm like, it's your cave, you tell me. And she's like, there's nothing like that down there. And I looked at similar pictures in the same area, some taken just seconds apart. It wasn't there. And then it shows up in one frame. She was at a loss to what it was, but it was there. Like I said, it was oblong, it was black, and looked like resting on the ground at maybe a 45-degree angle, like on a rock or something. But that was really creepy. And then while we were in there, we heard, of course, it's a cave and it's drippy and echoey and stuff, but we heard things back in the cave in parts that you can't get to.
Right.
And even Chris was like, she's like, I don't know what that is. And I mean, there was nobody down there. When we got there, we were the only ones there. And she actually unlocked that big metal gate that they put there to keep people out of the cave.
Yeah.
And she wouldn't really elaborate, but she said her husband would not go in the cave at all. He told her that this is your deal. It's yours, whatever. But that he'd been in there working, I think, when they were first putting lights in it. And something spooked him to the point that he left and hadn't been into the cave since at the time I was there. That may have changed, but
yeah.
And she also told us some things in the surrounding area there, like up near their house. There was a big tree there facing the house. It was off to the right. And she was talking about one night there was something in the tree, some kind of light. And she said it was bright. It lit up the whole front of the house. And they were out looking at it, trying to figure out what it was. And it just kind of flew away.
Wow. Yeah, I was really fortunate when I went this last time. I left the kids and my husband at the hotel for the first trip that I went there this last summer, because I wanted to have time to not only see the cave, but also take notes on the letters that are all inside of the cabin that are warnings to not take the rocks.
Right.
Because that's another thing that I'm researching right now. And I knew that my kids wouldn't have the patience to wait for that. So I went in the morning and I thought, well, I'll just go on a tour to see what it's like first before I bring the kids back. And I was lucky in that I was the first person there that morning and nobody showed up for, I don't know, an hour or more. And so they won't actually do a tour until they have 2 people. So I got to sit and talk with Chris and her daughter Candy for that entire time, which was amazing. And Chris had some really great stories. There was one that really stuck with me, and I know that I'm not going to do it justice, but she was washing dishes and looked out her back window, and there were 2 men in the yard looking around as if they were trying to find someone. And she went outside because they're not anyone she knows, and she was trying to get them off of her property. She figured that they were canoers because they canoe up the Red River and then they climb the bluff to try to get to the cave. They still do that. And she goes out there to ask them what they're doing. And they told her that there was a copperhead on the path and she needed to take care of it. And she kind of said, all right, well, fine, but you got to get out of here. And then she went and got Walter. And when he found the copperhead, it was kind of hidden. I not hidden, but not easily seen. And he couldn't figure out how in the world she knew it was there. And she said, well, it was those 2 men. And he said, well, you need to go make sure that they're gone, that they actually went back to their canoes. And so as he took care of the copperhead, she went to look for him and there was no sign of him at all, which she thought was weird because they shouldn't have been able to get back down the bluff or out of the woods that fast. And she went back to the house, and it was just a few minutes later, a family came up and knocked on the door, and there was a child with them and they wanted to see the cave, and the kid just took off down the path before they could stop him. And if these men had not shown up and warned her of the copperhead, he would have ran right into it.
Wow.
And so she said, I really feel that those were angels or guardians at the time just helping me out here, because that boy would not have been okay. But that story really stuck with me. She had a handful of other really awesome ones, but I really liked that one.
Now, did you get to see the photo album? I
did not, actually. I was too busy asking her 1,000,001 questions. You had told me about the photo album, and then it didn't cross my mind when I was actually there talking with her.
There are just some amazing pictures. Some she's taken herself, some other people have sent in, but there was one in particular that stuck with me, and it involves a snake. It's a picture of her daughter. I think said her name was Candy, and one of her friends. They're both were small at the time. I think it was the daughter's birthday, and Chris had taken their picture standing outside the entrance to the cave. And in the picture, and this was like with a little Instamatic camera, some an actual film camera. In the picture, there is what looks like a snake draped around her daughter's neck, around her shoulders.
Wow.
And, you know, she's just smiling. The other little girl smiling at the camera. And she's like, there's absolutely no way that she would have stood still for any kind of snake or anything creepy. But it's very clear. I mean, you can see the patterns on it and everything. And it's like, wow, that one blew me away. That one stuck with me. But it might have been a copperhead because it was uniquely patterned. But it's weird how snakes kind of come into play there on more than one creepy story.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a little break here. Go ahead and go to a commercial real quick. Let you take a breath there and stretch your legs, and appreciate hearing these stories. Maybe when we come back afterwards, if you've got another personal encounter that you can tell us about, that'd be great.
Okay.
Okay. Before we go to commercial break, we're getting that loaded up. Let's go ahead and do our Z-Horde anthem here. Give everybody a chance to stretch. I like to call it the 7th inning stretch here. Get up, shake your booty, shake it like a Polaroid picture. All rise for the Z-Horde anthem.
This one goes out to all you Dezomba friends, the Z-Horde. We want you to know just how much we love you.
Shout out to Ophelia Noctis, creepy clown girl, dark carnival got this. A local nightmare is so amazing. Puerto Rican Jose's entertaining. Dark waters, dog man is twisted. Asia 1994, really gifted. Dustin Fleming's stronger than the rock. Hellfire's out here making everything hot. Yeah, Braden 23 of I is a G. We're kryptonites down, kid, he's family. Now there are times when we all need gore. Danny Martian's in the house, never know what's in store. Mandy Mortem is legit and a queen. Gothic Rose enchanting, she's on the scene. 13 past midnight, things that go bump in the night. Gory B, horror addicts are out of sight. Big ups to the late horror show. Emily's Adventures in Horrorland, here we go. And you know we gotta keep them dice rolling, them the Who Entertainment, she's been chosen. Give it up for the evil outcast. Swedish mom is dope, yo, you know she got class. So if you get bad vibes from storytelling, then these monsters in my mind will leave you yelling. You see, we all about hearing stranger stories on the creeps. So sweet, she really got love for me. Penny tails up, narrating for the win. Queenie Todd, they amazing, but real dark and grim. The Mentor Centaurs, Flickathon, Swamp Dwellers, Scolded 22, they be our fellas. Animated Tomei, Time We Lives, our fantastic panic deep. Paranormal history, great graphics. What's up, Bullet Speedia? I meant CP. I'm gonna get so bent with nefarious TV. Slumber reads Art of Morbid, Cab 7, truly salmon. And we can never forget about Karen. 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 Karen.
All right, folks, and we're back. Hopefully you got up and moved around there. MD Who Entertainment says she got to shake it like a Polaroid picture. Yeah, I borrowed that from Outcast. Here we go. Now, if you kind of worked up a sweat there while you're toweling yourself off, if you had one of these awesome Dezombified mugs that you can find on the Teespring store, you could be drinking some ice water out of there, or some soda, some iced tea, whatever your favorite adult libation is, perhaps. You could even keep your hamster in there, your flesh-eating plant, your toothpaste, your toothbrush, whatever. If it'll fit in the mug, there you go. You got some. Get one for each hand. You can't have too many. They can even do a custom mug for you, like they did for Creepy Clown Girl, the one on the bottom there in pink. That was her mug. Got some new merchandise here going up for the gentleman. We've got the outlaw merchandise there. See word outlaw, undead outlaws with the designs for the gentleman, and for the ladies we've got the Zombie Queen line. I really liked the skull with the top hat there and the cigar. That's wow. Kelly Ann just got a donation of $100. Thank you so much. Your support is appreciated. Every penny goes into the show and making it better for the guests and the fans and the listeners. That's the other way. If you can't buy merchandise, you can donate. Certainly appreciate that. Or you can do what you're doing right now. Show up in the chat. Hit that like button, share, subscribe, tell your friends about Dezombified. Got something special going on here. They deserve to be bigger than they are, and they will get there. It's just a matter of time. But yeah, check out the Teespring store. All kinds of stuff on there. We've got new stuff coming up. I know there's baby onesies, the baby zombies. I keep hearing some rumors about some leggings that I keep hearing a rumor that Kenny Dredd is going to model those leggings. I don't know if there's any truth to that or not. Don't hold me to that, but I heard the quote that he could model the you-know-what out of those leggings, so we'll see where that goes. But yeah, check out the link there in the Teespring store. Check out the merchandise. As always, you can donate via PayPal, or like I said, do what you're doing here. Come to the streams, hit that like button, share, subscribe, tell your friends, family what we're on to here. Something real special. And we're all just in the stages where you can say, I knew them when they first started. Imagine when they hit 100,000 or 500,000 or 1 million subs. And we're in the core here. We're some of the founding members of the audience. I know I've been with them since around 400 subs, because I remember Kenny and his award that he got. He got an award from YouTube. But the lower end there, it's the cardboard and the aluminum foil off the pizza. Scratch and sniff pepperoni there, but and now look at that, almost to 1,000. That's another thing I wanted to mention. Got the 1,000 subscriber mega collab special coming up there. If you haven't recorded your audio for that, feel free. You've still got that time. I'm making them blush. You guys deserve the accolades, though. It's marvelous here what you're doing, and I've told them before, it's almost like a ministry. It's the Church of Z-Horde, the Church of the Dezombified, because you come here, you're not judged, you're loved. We talk about love diabetes. We spread the virus, and it's a good virus. It's one you want to catch. And not only here in the live streams, but in the Discord after. We have some fun times in the Discord. Here we got to kind of keep it PG and family friendly, but in the Discord at the after parties, especially after the night streams, that's where we let our hair down, and conversations can get pretty wild and all over the place. So have one mods pop the link into the Discord server. Please join us there anytime. There's usually somebody in there all the time. There's a lot of pictures, a lot of things there, strange videos and things that people have found and posted. But definitely check it out. All right, we're going to bring our guest Heather back up. And let's go ahead, Heather, if you don't mind. And even though we had the scary story background up there, that wasn't your actual scary story. I'm going to put that back up for you. And
Okay.
you got another story or personal encounter that you're going to share with us.
Yeah. So, good. Okay.
You're good to go.
All right. So this, like I said before, when you were asking me about the Bell Witch Cave and if I had any experiences, I think part of my issue is that I want to have an experience so badly that it's difficult for me to kind of tune into what's going on around me. So this story actually takes place over the time span of about a year, starting last summer when I went to Mansfield Reformatory in Mansfield, Ohio, to do some research on haunted objects. And I met with someone there who actually wishes to remain anonymous because of her other job, but someone who's worked at the prison for years and is someone who's well versed in the lore of the prison and so forth. And when I was meeting with her about the haunted objects, she started asking me questions, and I could tell it were those kind of questions that you ask someone when you're trying to suss out whether they believe in anything or not, or if they're going to judge you. And when she realized that I was excited to talk about ghosts and the supernatural, she started to tell me about the ghosts in the prison. And pretty soon she actually brought out the divining rods, the witching rods, and started asking questions of the spirits that were in the room, which I guess in that particular room, which is her office, it's usually the warden and the warden's wife, particularly the wife. At this point in time, she had just come across some footage of the warden's family, particularly the wife and the children, when they lived at the prison, because they lived there while the warden was working. And it's footage of the mother and the children on the steps and playing and so on. And she discussed how when the video would be playing in her office, that sometimes she would get certain scents that would be in the room. So one scent that would happen often would be the smell of like toast, because there's a little kitchenette off of her office where the warden's wife would cook. The girl that I was with at the time, who's actually a cousin of mine that travels with me, she smelled the toast prior to this woman saying anything about it. So that freaked her out a little bit to have smelled the toast before it was even mentioned. But she brought up how she has this video, and her plans were to put it down in the museum, as there is a museum in the prison in the entry. And she wanted to have an old style television just playing the video on a loop, and she was afraid that the warden's wife would stop visiting her so much because she thought she might follow the video of the children downstairs. So I didn't have any experiences at the time. I didn't have any sense, but fast forward to a year later, just a couple months ago, I take my husband and my children to the prison. And knowing some of these stories as we're going through the museum, I'm excitedly telling my husband more so than my kids, because they were busy looking at various things, but telling him different stories that I had heard and some of the history. And when we get to the room, which now currently has that old with the video on a loop, I said to him that there was the smell of toast upstairs, and that that woman I had spoken to the year prior was concerned that the spirits would not visit her office as much. They'd probably stick down by the videos of their children. And he said, well, that's probably then why they made sure to have tobacco, the smell of tobacco in this room so strongly. So probably did the warden have like tobacco or anything like that? And I said, actually, yes, but there's no scent in this room. I couldn't smell anything. My children couldn't smell anything, but my husband said it was so poignant that it was almost to the point of nausea. So I was really excited that he had had that experience. And as we're going through the prison after we leave the museum and we're going through the cell blocks, my kids start having issues where my son starts panicking. It's a really big open room, but it was the showers. He started panicking, saying that he couldn't breathe, that we had to leave. And then my daughter said that she was getting a headache in the back of her head, like low in the back of her skull, and that was really bothering her, just only in certain places though. My youngest, she's only 4, so she was just dancing about the place, completely oblivious to everything. But my 2 oldest did see lights in the prison. And finally we get to this point. We've been in the prison for a few hours, and I'm getting frustrated because I haven't seen anything, I haven't experienced anything. And my husband walks over to this area and he said, okay, it's overwhelming over here. It feels like I just walked through a wall of energy. You need to just come stand over here. There's no way you're not feeling anything. So I walk over. I don't feel anything at all. And so I turned to him and I'm like, okay, this is not fair. It's absolutely ridiculous. How are even the kids feeling this? And right when I said that, it felt like somebody took a baseball bat to the back of my head. Instant, horrible pain right at the back of my skull that caused me to double over. And that was my, all right, I got it. I'm on it. There we go. And so that's like the only physical reaction that I had during that day. But I feel like it was kind of a smack in the head, like, all right, you need to just calm down.
Wow, that's pretty amazing, and that it was affecting everybody. And I find it really fascinating about the smells. When I first moved to Portland, I lived in an older Victorian house. It was built in 1895 that had some activity, and that was one of the things that my daughter and I noticed. There would be smells, and one of them was tobacco, probably a pipe or a cigar type smoke. And I smoked cigarettes, but never in the house. But we would smell sometimes just, like I said, almost an overpowering scent of tobacco. And the other was perfume, and it was an older perfume, like I'm guessing like white shoulders or something like, a grandma type would wear. And that would be very prevalent sometimes. And then there were other times that we would wake to the smell of somebody baking what smelled like a cake or brownies or something. My daughter would come in like, what smells so good? And I'm like, I was going to ask you. It's like, and there's absolutely no explanation for it.
Yeah. I think that I was just too, like I said, too eager. And then I might have gotten a little bit too mouthy. And so I ended up getting a really nasty headache, just a very sharp, sudden pain.
Wow. I've had that happen before, where you walk into a place and even if you're expecting it, sometimes it just feels like somebody knocks the wind out of you, like you got gut punched or something, and it's just like, okay, I need to leave now.
Yeah, and that's why I want to seek out some more of these places to kind of have those experiences and see what all of this is about. I don't know. When I was little, I had an experience in my home where the animals, because we had 3 dogs and 2 cats at the time, and my parents were gone from the house, and I remember sitting in the living room floor with all of them. The TV was on, and all of a sudden I noticed that all of the animals froze and they just looked behind me. They were just staring. And I turn around and I see a man standing in the entryway to the dining room. He had long dark hair, and it didn't faze me. I saw him, and then I looked back at the animals, and that's when it clicked. Wait a second, that wasn't Dad. That doesn't even look like Dad. And when I looked back, it was gone. And the animals were back to doing what they were doing. But I saw that the one time, and then I've heard footsteps in the house that I grew up in. And the animals also, there was one cat in particular that would just randomly stare off in the corners or at the wall. And so I would pick him up and I would carry him toward wherever he was staring, just until he scratched me to get out of my arms. And I thought, okay, it must be right here, whatever it is. But again, I guess too eager to figure out what it was, because I never sensed it at that time. But I used the cat as a barometer. That was my ghost detector then.
Oh yeah.
If the cat was freaking out.
I think animals are very adept at doing that. Same house that I was just talking about with the smells, at that time, was before I got Mulder, I had a cat named Miss Velvet, and she would do that. There would be a spot on the wall that she would absolutely just stare a hole in. And I would get up there and look and see if there was maybe a bug or a spider or something.
Yeah.
I couldn't see, but nothing there. And she was tuxedo cat, and they're known to, they'll kind of chatter. They try to talk. And she would sit there and watch this spot, and it would always be the same spot, and just kind of like,
yeah.
But not really any fear, but just, what is this, So I don't know. And cat lives with my daughter now. I've got Mr. Mulder here, and I've got a sock monkey that disturbs him, and I've talked about my sock monkey before. It moves of its own accord. I'll come in sometimes it'll be turned around the other direction or facing one side or the other, not falling over, but turned. And I've had it for years. A friend of mine gave it to me. But Mulder does not like the sock monkey. He'll come in sometimes, especially if it's moved. Since the last time I looked at it, he will growl. He'll look up. It's sitting up on a shelf. I don't want him to get a hold of it because he would probably shred it.
Sure.
But that's my version of a haunted doll. I've got a haunted sock monkey. So
That's fantastic.
one other thing I wanted to touch base on, you mentioned the Mothman Festival. Now that's this weekend, right? I think the 21st
Yes.
and 22nd.
Yes. It starts Friday evening with Small Town Monsters premiere of Missouri Monster.
Absolutely. That's where I was going with this. You read my mind.
Yep.
Small Town Monsters, known for their documentaries that they make there. It's sort of a docudrama, I guess you would call it. I'm not sure because it's based on real things, but they kind of...
They went a different direction with this one a little bit.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to be able to help with the research on this. So I'm really excited to see everybody's reaction. But yeah, it kind of blurs the lines a little bit between, like you said, a bit of a drama, 1970s drive-in, and a documentary. They mesh it really well, though.
Yeah, they do a really good job. And
yeah,
it's smalltownmonsters.com. And don't really want to say what the name of the film is called because it also has the same name as a YouTube challenge that could get you in trouble. But Missouri Monster, take the first two letters of each name there, you can figure it out. But if it's like the other films that they've done, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, it is. They do great work.
All right. Well, Heather, I appreciate you being our guest today. This hour has flown by.
Thank you for having me and for asking me on.
You did so great. And I knew you would. It's just one of those things, I know you were kind of nervous about coming on and being your first interview and everything, but I think, and probably because of your background and attending conferences and stuff, you're just a natural for this, like you were the narration. I was shocked when, in a good way, when you narrated that piece for me, and because somebody says, "Yeah, I'll narrate it for you," and you're thinking, "What's it going to sound like?" And from the moment I hit play, I was just captivated. You did such a wonderful job, and I think since it was your own, maybe you put more into it than somebody else would. You did a better job than I would have done on it. But if you haven't heard that, Witches and Silver Bullets, go check that out on my channel. You can find Heather's amazing blog post. That Ouija post will knock your socks off. That's at intothefray.com. And she's going to be at the Mothman conference this weekend. Was there anything else, or festival? Is there anything else coming up that you're involved in that we need to be aware of, Heather?
No.
Okay.
Nope. I'm going to be getting right back to researching for upcoming Small Town Monster stuff. And then I'm an adjunct instructor, so grading. That's what's on my agenda.
All the fun stuff. All right,
Yeah.
well, good deal. Thanks again. Feel free to join us anytime in the chat, and I'd love to have you back again as a guest. Before we go, I'm going to go ahead and bring Dezombified in. Kenny Dreadful and Miss
Hey everybody,
together.
what's going on? It's me, Kenny Dreadful.
Hey guys, how's it going?
And with me is the Dominican.
Sorry about that.
I didn't have my headphones on. Sorry, Steve.
Okay, no, yeah, but hi, I'm Miss Stereo. With me is Kenny Dreadful. That baritone voice that you just heard. We are Dezombified, and this is our show, Stereo Dread, for those who are new.
Thank you, and welcome. Heather, thank you for being on our show.
Thank you for having me.
It was a pleasure. It was our pleasure.
Yeah, your story was really scary, and I hope that everybody checks out your podcast, and it sounds like you got way more to offer, so thank you for that. And Steve, as always, thank you. You're always a wonderful host, and we appreciate you, buddy.
Thank you guys for giving me a platform to bring in the people that I find that I fangirl over. So I'm a big fan of Heather's. Just want to point out, I won't have a show Friday due to some extenuating circumstances. But Saturday night, I'm going to be on the Dark Waters Radio Network with Sean G, Chasing the Truth Paranormal. So join us there if you can. And unfortunately, I don't have the time in front of me, but follow Sean on Facebook or Twitter. He'll have the time on there. But hope to see you all in the chat. Everybody else, again, thanks to Dezombified. Thanks, Heather. Everybody have a great day. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever it is, wherever you are. Much love to you all. Mwah. Thank you for being here. I'm Steve Stockton, aka 13 Past Midnight, and I am out of here. That's a wrap, folks. Thank you. Mike's still hot. There's the promo for Sean's show on the screen. Thanks, Zombified, for popping that up there. Okay, now I'm out of here.
You